the key word here is test. Your test is the most important thing, and you cannot test if you don't know what to test for. All these things that we're talking about, a man being able to provide, a man not being selfish, a man not being ignorant. You cannot go and ignore these things because he's tall and handsome.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. This is Capítulo 3, Chapter 3. Man, we are steady, making progress, with the marriage key. I've been getting some keys that has been unlocking some doors in my own life. All right, and as I impacted and I come in contact with, especially people of the younger generation, I just a little bit, I drop a little bit of the nuggets here and there, and then
Nice.
I love the reactions, like, wow, I never thought of that. So I want to say that this book available on Amazon. Sure, you check it out. There's an audio version on YouTube. And yeah, so chapter 3, PPI, Mr. Authors. We have the author himself with us, and we're talking through it. Chapter 3, PPI, sir. So can you just give us a little bit of um what was going through your mind when you thought about PPI? Explain to our viewers what PPI is, and why you felt this was necessary for a part of the Marriage Key book.
Yes, I have to say welcome to everybody. If this is the third one that you're looking at, or at least the third chapter you're looking at, you have been putting in your time, and so I appreciate that you're trying to make a change, no, or trying to learn, get new knowledge in this area.
That's right.
The thing with the PPI, it was a way to try to make it something that's easy to understand, easy to remember when you think of PPI. And the thinking about protecting, providing for, and giving identity. These are things that come into play when there's something precious, something that's important, where you want to have the longest possible time with it. You want to have it in its best shape. And this thing happens to be a marriage or a relationship. You know, you might not believe in getting married, and so you might just live together, and you even then you want it to last forever. And we sing that in all the songs that we sing, you know, forever and a day and 1,000 years and what else, no?
Yeah.
And some of us don't want to live a day with a person, but another person writes a song, I can't live a day without you.
It's like, what's going on here?
So yeah, so this is in the hope that to show how precious a relationship is.
Yeah.
And then to give the ingredients and the keys that will cause that to be unlocked and last forever and be at its best. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we appreciate. For me, I strongly believe this is a timeless book. That's what
Wow.
that's you have some of these songs, you're alluding to songs a while ago. You have some of these songs that from the 80s, and I this every time you hear it, it's like, that's a good song.
Yeah.
They remain timeless, and I think I believe this book is going to be a book that the truths in it and the wisdom in it will ripple through generations to come. So
Wow.
I want to dig into your thought process, and try to go beneath the layers of what you wrote in the book. You go ahead.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, you start off with the first P, as you introduced PPI as protecting, is protecting, providing, and identity. I want to zoom in on the truth that you talked about, that we as men, we are to protect, and you talked about the most obvious form of protection, which is physically.
Yeah.
You give these very I love how you bring us in with your stories with the German Shepherd and your dad and his combat boots,
Yeah.
and then you move to your own theory of rat bats, which I don't like rat bats either.
Yeah.
Um, I've had a few run-ins with them. Anyways, and so
Hmm.
but you talked about how your dad rose to the occasion, you rose to the occasion, and I think for men, when we think about protecting our homes, we're talking about this a bit off camera that guys will think things through. I get camera system, I get an alarm system.
Mm-hmm.
I get a few dogs. I'll go as far as get a firearm or in our culture, machete or machete. Depends if you're what. That's one of the things that's a form of protection. Anybody comes here, I'm gonna have to defend. But could you talk to us, or can you help us to understand how does a man need to be equipped to protect his wife mentally, spiritually, emotionally, because you introduced that other dimension of her protection that's needed, which
Yeah.
is her mind, spirit, heart, emotion. What kind of equipping does a man need um to do this?
The whole battle that we're in, or the race that we're in, has almost 99% to do with our minds
Hmm.
and how we think.
Hmm.
So just before I answer your question, I wanted to
Yes.
say that it's in my mind that the day when the bat fell through the roof,
Hmm.
it I think it was hurt to get through. It hurt itself to get through, so it couldn't fly, and it was walking around the house,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
something woke us up out of our sleep.
Okay.
And before I knew it, my wife jumped on the bed. And I just want you to know that I jumped on the bed with her too, because it wasn't like I was this big bad.
Yeah.
I saw that thing and I jumped on the bed too. And it took a little minute for me to see, you know what, it's your turn to do what you have to do. So, just wanted to know I was on that bed also. Um, I have here, don't be an ostrich.
Hmm.
You're asking how can the man prepare himself,
Yeah. How can he equip himself for that dimension of protection?
right? To say that it is not only physical protection we need, that is clear,
Mm-hmm.
that you would physically protect your wife and your kids. But we don't want to leave out the other part of the human. And this is where don't be an ostrich come in. A
Mm-hmm.
human has a spirit, and a human also has a mind,
Right.
not only a body. Because when you protect that person, you're protecting their body. When you use a weapon or a machete, you are protected. Even if you're using those weapons, you still can use them with the intent to protect the other parts of your wife and your children.
Mm-hmm.
So let me say that an ostrich, when I've heard that an ostrich he puts his head in the ground, and because he can't see you, he feels or she feels that it's safe, you know.
Wow.
And I don't know how true it is, but don't be that, don't be like that,
Mm.
because now his whole body is out.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the same thing where if you protect and you think you're doing the world's greatest gift to your wife and to your daughters and sons because you protect them physically,
Mm-hmm.
you are doing 1/3 of what is necessary.
Right, right.
You see? So the first thing is to be aware that the other 2/3 happen to be there.
Mm-hmm.
They happen to have a spirit and they happen to have a mind. Okay?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so for example, you can be a protection for your child by being there, by simply being there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, presence.
Just being present, not presently absent. I think I heard you use that term before,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but being presently present, so that if someone is there and they're trying to, it might be an adult trying to
Mm-hmm.
appease or to seduce your child
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
into something that they should not be doing, whether it's good or bad. Not well. I mean, it's especially if it's bad,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to get them into doing something that's wrong, or trying to take advantage of them sexually. you're hearing that a man is constantly talking to your girl and it's an adult and it's a little child, and because you're there and you're listening to that child talk and you're there for that child, you can protect. So it's not only pulling the weapon, but it's also being able to be there for them emotionally.
I love that.
And so you have to understand that as a male,
That's
if
good.
you cannot do these things and you need help yourself, then don't get married. Don't get into a relationship. Don't have a child. Because if you need that help yourself, if you emotionally you are unstable and you can't even look after their needs because you are not complete in your own self, then you're not ready for a relationship. Get yourself together that you are not only at the point where you really don't need much, but you can give and you can listen and you can be there for somebody. Then you are ready to be in a relationship. If you are as broken as your wife, if you are as soft and easily annoyed because you're tender, because you are hurt and you have unresolved issues, then you are a danger. Because the tools that God gave you to protect your wife and your kids, you're going to take those tools and use them against them. So don't get in there just because sex is good to have.
Right.
Yeah. And so yeah, you need to prepare by first being aware, and then you have to start to practice to have yourself being complete, that you can give to them the attention they need. And trust me, especially women, you have to understand how to give women attention because they are not men. So while you're okay in a corner with no one telling you anything and you just want silence, a lady needs for you to hear her out. She needs your affection. And if you can't give her that, then don't leave your house and go and take your wife. Yet you're not ready. So you need to prepare yourself and make yourself complete. And then you also need to train yourself on how to listen, how to communicate, and that sort of movement. The spiritual side, I had that to look at, but I want to say that your spirit, many people believe different things, and some people believe that when you die, that's the end. But there are others that believe when you die, it's just beginning. That there's a creator, and we call that creator in our series the manufacturer. And when you die, we do not care for you. Love is not a feeling. Loving you is telling you that when you die, there might be somebody on the other end that you have to answer to. And you need to be prepared to meet that person. And so there are people that believe there's no God. You might be an atheist. So preparing your child spiritually will mean telling that child there's no God. Don't listen when they tell you there is. Preparing that child or your family spiritually, if you believe in Buddha, is telling them about Buddha. And if you believe in Jesus, then preparing that child and that woman is telling them about Jesus. So whatsoever you believe spiritually, even if there's no God, teach your family. None. I have my own belief, and that is that there's a God.
Right.
And there's only one way to that God. I call him the manufacturer. But you might have your own, and I'm saying preparing that person spiritually means telling them these things. That when they die, they are prepared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we are going to die, right?
We're all
Yeah.
gonna die. Saying to somebody the other day, I said probably it was a little more morbid than I wanted it to be, or it wasn't intending to be. But I say, we're dying every day.
Yeah.
But I wanna say what I hear you saying. I wanna sum it up before I pose another question on the table for us. You talked about to this man be equipped. I want to say that he needs to be an ACE man, ACE. He has to be aware of the need, and I think A for aware, like we are naturally aware of the need for physical protection, but we need to be aware of the needs of spiritual, emotional, mentally, the mind, the heart.
Yes.
So you talked about the mind having to be complete. You must be at a place where you can you know to process your own emotion, you know to process, you have you're healthy in these aspects. And
Yes.
so C, you got to be complete. And then if I hear it correct, being present and learning to listen and engage, which is the E. So
Yeah.
fellas, be an ace man. All right,
Nice.
be aware of the need that be, you gotta be complete first,
Uh-huh.
and you gotta know how to engage your wife and your kids, how to listen and be present with them in the moment.
That's
So
right.
be an ace man, be an ace man, be an ace guy. All right. Um, and I can have a part two question here because I think I am it's excellent. In the book you gave a very good encouragement, which I was really thinking through for my own life and kind of measuring how am I doing in this area. But you talked about a form of this protection looks like um speaking, truth and encouragement, affirmation kind of thing to our wives.
Yeah.
For me, I took that as like as an offensive form of protection. And I think in protection, you can be offensive or you can be defensive.
Yeah.
And so can you talk to us? Is there a defensive dimension to this protecting of the wife's heart and mind or the family? And when I ask that question, I'm thinking of things that are bombarding them from society. Is there a form? What's the responsibility of the man in that aspect of protecting the wife's heart and the kid's heart, mind, kind of thing like that?
Yeah. That's a deep question. And it requires maturity. For
Hmm.
you to think these things, just to think about them, you have to be mature. And to carry them out takes another level of maturity and ability.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to keep in mind that this is one of the weakest area that men find themselves in. When they want the woman,
Right.
they're not weak in protecting this woman's identity, in protecting her mind, etc. But the minute we into that place where they say I do to us, then we tend to slack off, like we make a 180 turn for some reason. I don't understand why we behave this way. But there are many, many things coming. And again, one of the ways to have defense is to have a good offense. And so if you have a child, a lady, let's look at the child. If you have a child and you know that child will be going to school, that child will have other people around him or her, that might tell her all sort of things. Might be a teacher telling her about herself or him about himself. And so in being proactive, you're going on the offense to do something that's defensive. You telling your child, your woman, how beautiful they are, how much you appreciate them, you affirming them, which is the other part of this
Right.
thing, given
Right.
identity.
Right.
When you do that, you are building them up. You are
I like
creating a
that.
structure. You are creating a culture,
Mm.
and that causes a sense of knowing who you are. And when I know who I am, you can't go tell me otherwise. You cannot come and tell me anything otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And so in simply doing your responsibility, you are
Mm.
preparing them for this.
For the defense.
Yes. And the
Mm.
second thing is there might be people coming. I remember one time having a situation where one of my children, by their own, one of their relatives told them something that was hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my child, I said, you tell that person, whenever he comes to you again,
Mm-hmm.
tell that person, listen, sir, my dad says to speak to him instead.
Mm.
No, there
Mm-hmm.
was no weapon. There was no fighting. No, my dad says to speak to him instead.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm.
is something that I did to protect her mind.
Right.
Because you want to speak, then speak to me. And she knows now that say that to my daddy.
Yeah.
You know? And these are small things that we can do, and being observant allows defensive. I remember one time one person came to pick up one of my daughters, and I said, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. That happened once. I think he dropped my daughter back home. Was a good friend.
Yeah.
And I said, no, 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 no. That never happens again. Whenever my daughter needs to move, as long as I have breath, I am going to get her and I am going to take her back. And I'm not sorry about that. And I won't wait until you come and tell me you're sorry. No, 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 no. It doesn't work that way. I know that is a bit, you might say physically I'm trying to protect. But at the same time, when you do my daughter something stupid and you hurt her, then you hurt her mentally for the rest of her life. In how she sees men, whether or not she wants to get into relationship, she might not want to be in a relationship with men any at all because of what you, no, 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 no. That never happened. Yes, you're my friend. I don't care. Don't come and pick up my child. Don't try to bring her back. If I need you to do that, I'm going to ask. Don't let it happen again. And he was very upset.
Yeah, no, good, solid stuff, man, solid stuff. So before I go to, because I have a few questions in the providing area, do you have any other thoughts or anything that you wanted to add in that maybe didn't get out when it comes to the protecting part, whether the physical or the emotional side? I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there. You want to add anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, it is so important to try to cover as much as possible. And I want to say that we are talking about protecting your wives, and so how do you not protect your wife? And keep in mind that we don't do too bad when it comes to physically protecting our wives. We don't do too bad for the most part. There are a few of us that hurt our wives physically, and I don't know what to say to that, how to speak to that. Why in the mind of a man? Well, I know what to say, but the problem is that we have a bigger issue. It is more common where we don't protect their mind, we don't protect them mentally. And this is where their greatest need lies. In their mental sanity, their mental safety, their mental comfort and peace. That's where the biggest need of a woman. Affection. And that has to do with the mind. And so there are ways so we do not, or we do the opposite of protect our wives. And I just want to throw a couple of them up. One is being defensive. Where I remember my wife telling me, when we were dating, you were so understanding. You used to listen to me, you used to understand and identify and give me answers and good ideas. And now when I bring up something to you, you get defensive. And I couldn't understand, but I got defensive because I couldn't answer. I might be the one in the wrong. And so I protect myself one time. And if you're busy protecting yourself, then you won't be in the place to protect your woman, to protect that tender part of her that she's releasing to you. That affection that she needs, she's giving you her heart. And instead of protecting it, you are trying to use that to protect yourself. And that's not good. So being defensive is one way that you go against protecting your wife. Another one is issuing a prenup. Now, I know the rich will say, sir, you don't have any money. And so that's why you are talking this way. But wait until you have 10 million. Then you will see how you change the way you speak. Well, first thing I'll say to you, you can give me the 10 million that I can prove it, no? Since you are that heavy with it. Editor, you can take that out if you need to. But you know, it's not prenup, you're protecting yourself. You're telling that woman you're not that special. You're special up to 10 million. After we jump 10 million, you lose your specialist start to get increasingly less and less as it goes up. Infidelity is another way that we don't protect. We don't protect their mind because we don't care. So we don't care if they're going crazy, if they feel stupid and ashamed to have to be in public knowing that their man is out there walking hand in hand with another lady and in between another woman's leg. We don't care if they're ashamed. We're not protecting their minds. And so this is another way. Another way is choosing others over her. It can be a friend. You know, if I'm with a friend and it's a female friend and my wife is uncomfortable with that friend, she is no longer my friend. I'm sorry. I don't need your friendship. You understand? So if my wife doesn't have a problem, and there are times when my wife would say, go and do this for this person or that person, and then I know I have her blessing and I'm not afraid to go. But the minute my wife is uncomfortable, I trust her judgment, I trust her senses, and I'm not going. You can't be my best friend and you have a problem with my wife. I'm sorry, man or woman, doesn't matter. Because the last point I have here, why? Because my wife is my priority. So she comes before you. I'm sorry, but she comes before you. And if we don't have her as a priority, then we are not protecting her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually not only protecting her, but yourself and your home, because that's a good point that I think needs to be heard, where um if they can't necessarily be a friend or approved by the couple to be a friend to either or the couple, then you're running into danger.
Yep.
You know, you're running into some serious problems.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I
no.
just want to say that include mother-in-laws and father-in-laws.
Yeah.
You if you are trying to get in between a man and his wife or a wife and her husband, then you need to make sure that you have a really good reason for wanting to do that. Because there are reasons that meet that threshold.
Yes,
such as abuse and infidelity, etc., etc.
Right.
But you have to be careful of what you're doing.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. So, now when we talk about providing, again, most cultures, I think I could say, and I've observed, generally accept the idea or the ideology of the man as the provider.
Yeah.
But you know, I have seen sometimes where there is there's a weight placed on the woman to work. Now,
Yeah.
I wanna ask you two things here. What would be your challenge to um what would be your challenge to a man who is forcing his wife to work? And I'm very careful with using that word. I should say I'm intentional with using the word force. Um, what's your challenge to a man who is forcing his wife to work?
Yeah.
And what's your encouragement to a wife who is being forced to work?
Wow.
You know.
That second one hit me across the head. It's you can be forced to work because of unforeseen circumstances. There are times when there's a war, like in the States, there were times when the war came and the women had to go in the factories and build the weapons because the men were out fighting. So there are times when that might be necessary. But for a wife who is being forced to work, that seems to me to suggest that she did a poor investigation. If it is not because of unforeseen circumstances such as COVID, your investigation should be so good that I'm not saying go and look for a rich man that won't, but if you're being forced to work, then that means you have a man that understands not his responsibility. The curse that he received was to work. So if you are being forced to work and you still have your other three curses, then you have four now. And I think that it is difficult for you to do anything about that, except have a discussion. And if you have to do it for survival, then I understand. But to me, that question has to be answered before you say I do. And this is why you don't rush in to get in a relationship. You should be rushing to investigate. because you make a bad choice and you kind of have to live a lot of times with the choice that you've made. So it's good to make a good choice out the gate, no? And the man forcing his wife to work, that's much easier for me to answer because that's your job, sir. You are the provider. And that is the curse that has been given to you, that by the sweat of your brow, you will eat. And so you are the person that should be caring and providing for your family. And so if you are looking to your wife to work, that means there's a part in your mind that is messed up. And I don't know where you got that from. If you came up with it yourself, you heard it from others, or you saw your mother by herself having to raise you up. And so you feel that that is the normal. No, 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 no. Not because your father did not do and carry out his responsibility means that that is the right thing to do. If that is why you're telling your wife she has to work, she should work because she wants to, and because she enjoys what she does, so she wants, not because she has to. So that's a challenge to you. In fact, one of the things I have written down is to say that if you're going to the States, I've heard that if you're going to the States on a trip and you go to the embassy to get your visa, you have to show them that you have the money to survive while you're in the States.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say, show us how you want to go for 2 weeks. Where are you going to stay? How are you going to move around? What are you going to eat?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not ready to go, then stay where you are.
Yeah.
And if just to take a 2-week trip to the state, you have to come up and show that you're capable. What about a 20-year trip to a marriage? Where you will not only have a wife, but you will have a house to deal with. You will have children to deal with. And so I want to say to that man, if you are saying your wife has to work, it's because you don't understand what your responsibility is. And if she has to work, then there has to be a balance where when you come home, you take her work also. She's taking your work. So now when you come home, help her clean the house, help her wash the clothes, help her spread the table, help her cook, help her take care of the kids. And you should be doing this anyway. So make sure you do even more of it. Because she's not your slave. So she must work and come home and work again. Who are you, a king? Maybe her last name might be King.
Might be King.
But who are you, a king?
King James.
Yeah, well, that's his first name, no? King. That is his title.
I mean, you know, it's funny. I'll say, man, I was, I had to explain to some young men. They were saying, you know, girls are opportunists. They're just looking for guys with the money and the whatever. I said, okay. I said, all right, maybe that kind of mindset exists in a female, but maybe it exists sometimes somewhere, right? But let me say something to you guys. I say a woman is wired to want security. If she sees that you can provide and secure her, she will be attracted to that. Duh.
Yeah.
Because in the inner security, and I always say, like we talked about earlier, and I like to say that insecurities are a lack of inner security, you know?
Yeah.
And but I was trying to encourage them to say, shift your paradigm and the way they look at it. I said, if you are a successful man, and I'm not saying that you have to be like filthy rich, right? But she's gonna they're wired that way, right? And on the flip side, we're also encouraging the young women in that conversation to get an education so they don't have to remain in an abusive or oppressive relationship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things I have written down here, and I want to respond to that thought that you brought forth. But I wanted to say here that, to me, a lady getting an education is similar to having a spare tire in your car. So, women, get your education. Make sure you have it. Please, make sure you have an education. Because similar to the spare tire, you can have a situation where, because of bad circumstances, a crisis, a circumstance that cause your husband to be unable to work, and you might have to care for him. You know, things happen. But the bigger one is that he might cheat and go about his business. And we have situations where we find women having to go from person to person because they believe that is how they can care for their kids. And each person they go, they make another kid, another child, and they're trying to sustain. And it's if you can take care of yourself, then you don't have to depend on any man. And that's so sad to have to say it that way. But so I encourage you, get an education, because that's your spare tire. And in case there's a flood, and men are catching flood all over the place, so in case there's a flood, you can pull out your spare tire and you don't have to depend on any man. No?
Men are
So,
catching flat. I like that. Go ahead, though.
yeah. And with that question, women just being, how you said it, that they want to...
They're just opportunists, I guess.
Opportunists. Let me tell you something. I would be careful how I say this to you, but because we're on a podcast and you didn't say this, and I'm gonna say you, I'm talking to you, the listener, that thinks that way, that women are opportunists. Let me use 4 words that describe what you just said. And it describes you. It says, 1, you are selfish. 2, it says you're immature. 3, it says you're ignorant. And 4, it says you're incompetent. So just by saying that, you told me 4 things. No other incompetent men might agree with you. And you might feel that you're on the right track because somebody else agrees with you. But not because 1,000 people are doing something stupid means that it is not stupid. Why selfish? You are there to give. The meaning of the word love in Hebrew is I give. That's what they say it translate to. I give. You should be giving. And this is the reason why young men should not get into relationships, because you are still selfish. Mommy and daddy still takes care of you, and you don't understand what sacrifice means. So you're selfish. The next thing, you're immature. And why are you immature? Because you're ignorant. You're ignorant because you don't know. You do not know that for a car to work, you have to put gas in it. But once you put fuel in it, you can go all the way to Cairo in it. A lady is like that car. You want to put in nothing and ask what she brings to the table. Well, if there's no gas in the car, she's going to bring a different kind of gas. When you have gas in your stomach, you let out gas through your rear and through your mouth, because you're empty. And that doesn't smell good, and it probably doesn't sound good. And so when people have women who are empty around them and they're full of just gas, and we complain about how it smells, but it's because you, sir, have her empty. So you can't travel anywhere, because you can't go from here to Bamapan, because or from here to whatever country, you can't travel 10 miles because her tank is empty. And why is her tank empty? Because you're incompetent. Because if you were competent, you would have known that you put gas in the car. And so a lady will take what you give her, will multiply it and give it back to you. Competence means learning what you need to give her, what type of fuel she uses, what she needs to cook the food, what she needs so she can buy clothes for you, what she needs, and you give that to her so that she can provide back for you. So anybody that speaks that way tells me 4 things. They are selfish, they're immature, they are ignorant, and they are definitely incompetent.
Yeah, I think it just comes back to to men rising up to the mandate of what it means to be a man, especially in this in this area.
Yeah.
You have any final thoughts when it comes to this providing part? Did you have any other thing that you'd want to throw into this?
Of course.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Of course. I want to just add 2 things quickly, and that is, 1, for you to provide, you need to ask the question, what does that person need? There's a big difference between want and need. So what does that person need? You have to be mature to be able to ask that question. It can't be about what you want. And the problem is, sir, that these days when a man tell a woman he loves her, he's saying he likes what he gets from her. How she looks makes him feel good. How she talks to him make him feel good. How her body looks make him feel good. How sex with her feels make him feel good. That is not love. And so when we go into a relationship with this immature belief, it causes immature behavior, and we can't ask the question what she needs because we are so busy all over ourselves with what we need. That is a problem. So to provide, you first have to ask, what does she need? The man's job is to provide. What does my wife need? Because after that, you have to ask, what does my children need? You see, if you are going to be a good father. Next is to understand that it is not enough to even just be able to provide for your wife and your children. According to the manufacturer, a good man leaves an inheritance not only for his children, but for their children. And he says that if you do not, the same manufacturer says, if you do not take care of your children and your family, you are a shame to him. You are worse than an infidel. That is what, I'm not saying this. This is what he says. So it is that just providing for your wife is just like the minimum. And if you are complaining about that, sir, then you shouldn't have a wife. Because that's just the minimum.
Right.
And those are the two things I would like to throw in there.
Yeah. Perfect. You know, on the topic of inheritance, in your book, in the book, you also wrote about two dimensions of this inheritance: the physical side, which I think you were talking about, but you also talked about an eternal inheritance. And you touched earlier about what that looks like to some extent, but give us a little more practicality there with what does a man need to do? What are some steps he can do to leave this inheritance, the physical and the eternal, for his family?
Yeah, well, the physical inheritance is very easy, and many of us are good at doing it. So we'll make sure our children have land, have a house. We'll make sure they have those physical things. Maybe we leave some type of fund for them. When they get a certain age, they can get it. We might have insurance for them, because you might not be able to leave a lot of money for your children, but you might be able to put money in the credit union, in the bank for them and save it, or put on money in insurance for them.
Yeah.
And so that's the physical, but there are many ways to do that. And then you have the spiritual. And what I'm saying is that if you believe that there's a God, then you need to prepare that child from that child is young. You need to be there for your wife, helping her to understand this. If you believe there isn't any God, then you don't have to worry about anything. You don't even have to worry about that eternal part. Because according to you, when you die, that's it. You have nothing else to worry about. And if that's what you believe, then that's what you believe. When you die, you will find out whether or not what you believe is true. But that is what you believe. Now, if you believe there's a God, then you have to prepare your family to meet that God, to meet the manufacturer. And there are thousands of different ways that people believe you meet that manufacturer. And so whatsoever the way is that you believe, find the best way, find the true way. I believe there's only one way, but find that way and train your child, encourage your family, your household in that way. Because there's only one way. That person calls himself the way. Okay?
Yeah.
And you have to prepare your family in that, like, for the eternal, because it is so frightening. I used to say to people that if you die and there's no God and you didn't prepare for God, then you're good. You're good to go. Because there's no God. You're just an animal. You just die and it's done. If there's a God, and he says that when you die, you don't die, but you go to him, and you did not prepare, then you are in some big trouble. So
Yeah.
it is better to prepare
Yes.
and there's no God
Yes.
than to not be prepared and you end up
Yeah.
on this journey
Mm-hmm.
where you find out that you made a mistake. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
nice mistake you want to make. It's like
Irreversible.
jumping in a pool and finding out there's no water. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. 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 It's a costly mistake actually. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
if we I have probably just about maybe two more questions for you on this side, man. As
Sure.
we um in the I we talk about identity, and I
Mm-hmm.
found this again very encouraging and very relevant. And you talked about the importance of a man again with the affirmation and speaking to her value and worth, his wife's value and worth.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, let's say there's a husband that has been devoid of this principle, this truth, of the need for him to be the one that is intentional about shaping the identity of his wife and kids, and he's been verbalizing and just been negativity for 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, but now the lights are on and he's turning the other way.
Yeah.
And my question is there a point of no return, or is there a place beyond repair for a wife or a family, even when the man wants to begin to create a healthy identity?
Yeah, of course.
Hmm. Hmm.
Of course. We are
Hmm.
human beings.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we can only take so much.
Hmm.
Now, everybody has a different threshold,
Right.
but there is a point of no return, meaning that you have caused
Hmm.
irreparable damages
Mm-hmm.
to your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And now she doesn't want you. It is done. And I have seen situations as such where in my heart I want to interfere and I want to help. But as I look at the situation and even see that the husband has not changed and is not willing to change, and I don't want to go and interfere and try to reunite them back and put that lady back in the same ordeal, back in the same situation when there's no change and there's no desire for change.
Mm-hmm.
So then you stay out of it, even if they ask for help, because you can't help.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a place where you can hurt her identity, hurt her identity, hurt her identity, damage her physically, where she would be a fool to stay with you, where she would be outside of her mind to stay with you, and where she will never come back to you. That is there is a place where that can happen. And so a man has to be careful. And most of the time when a man is doing what has been doing these sort of things, he doesn't care anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not he's satisfied because he can go and get 10 other women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there are others that do these things and they tell their wives, you can't have anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm going out there cheating, you are not allowed to have anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
These are kings.
Mm-hmm. You're a king.
They're not mere human beings. They're not mere mortals. They're
No.
kings.
We must bow down in their presence, sir.
Yes, that's right. But of course, there's that place, and
Yeah.
that's not a good
Yeah.
place to be.
My question was intended to encourage us as men and husbands to not get there, to be on the offensive, right, when it comes to this aspect.
Yeah,
Now, again, you end the chapter very well with that encouragement for women to be able to test for to be able to look for PPI, look for the protector, the provider, and one that can give identity,
yeah,
pre-marriage, pre-commitment. Man, could you offer a little bit of practicality there? Because a lot of times I say, fake it till you make it kind of thing.
yeah,
And uh, there's a very deceptive part of us as humans that can put on a facade until we get in the door, get what we want. But
yeah.
what's your advice? What practical tips? A few of them. Of how can she uh find out if the guy has the PPI and ready?
That is such a heavy question, a loaded question. And it deserves its own
okay.
time. And we have other sessions where we spoke about this. So I'll try to rather than be detailed, to give you a general answer if I may, no?
Sure.
And I would say that, mommy, the key word here is test. Your test is the most important thing. Be able to test. And you cannot test if you don't know what to test for.
Right. I like that. It's good.
So all these things that we're talking about, a man being able to provide, a man not being selfish, a man not being ignorant. You cannot go and ignore these things because he's tall and handsome, or because he has a fast car, or because he's a movie star. You cannot ignore these things and then hope to get the best. You need to make sure that this man comes with these things, that he's not selfish, that he understands what love is, that he's willing to sacrifice, that he's willing to give. You have to understand whether or not this man has respect for his mother. You have to understand whether or not this man is courteous, whether he is respectful to you in the way he treats other women around you. Sometimes there are men walking with their woman, and a woman pass on the other side and their heads are turning. If you are dating a man like that, let that be the last day of that date. Don't even speak about it. You're with him in a restaurant, he takes you out on a date, and the waitress comes, and he's flirting right in front of your face with the waitress. You don't have to ask any questions. It is being shouted to you to your face.
Run!
Yeah. If you want to ask question, the minute you ask question, that is saying you will tolerate it. Because that is something that either you leave right there and then, or that's the last time I want to see your face. And so you cannot get married or commit to a long-term relationship without doing these things. Because for your own surety, it's the same thing as saying, do not jump out the plane and then while you're out there, check if the parachute works. It's the same as saying, do not jump off the springboard 20 feet high in the air into a pool that you're not sure if it has enough water or any water at all. You don't check for the water after you have jumped. And getting with a man without checking for these things that we're talking about here, his ability to protect, not just physically, but to protect you mentally.
Right.
And especially mentally. His ability to provide for you. You need to live at a certain standard. You don't want to live where you have to work. Or you want to live, even if you have to work, that there's an understanding that we share the responsibilities at home. Because you're not a slave. His ability to give you identity. And in that identity is where the chief amount of things stand. And it is so important that when you get married, he changes your name. You are no longer identified by your last name. You are so-and-so, wife of this person. So maybe your first name was King. Now your name might be Banner or whatever. So they no longer know you as Mary Beth Banner or Mary Beth King. You are now Mary Beth Banner. And all your passport, your IDs, everything, you have a new identity. Why? Because he gave you that. And then he also has this responsibility to give you identity in your importance to him. How much he appreciates you, how much he needs you. And I'm not need in the sense of he's not complete, but how much he appreciates having you around. You see? what you mean to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he encourage you with this, not just because you're dating now, but because he understands that this is the fuel, this is one of the fuel that you need in your tank. You see? And so that is how I would answer that question.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. So I'm gonna give you, sir, space to sign us off with some of your final thoughts, some of your final input here. You know, what else do you have for us today in terms of the PPI?
Yeah. There's not much more to say. And so I just close off with a thought that as a man, you create a culture for your family. You decide what culture your family will function with. And this
That's
is
good.
where these three things
That's good.
are the tools
That's good.
that hewn out that culture. It
That's good.
chisel out that culture. Okay? And so it is important to understand that everybody who is under authority, whether it's a female, like a woman in a relationship with a man, she's under authority, or it's on the street, a person under authority, whether it's under the authority of the teacher, we who are under authority, it is always important what words are spoken to us. Anybody who is under authority, words mean something to them. And I mean words from the authority, encouragement from the authority, okay, equipping from the authority. It is important to understand that. And whenever you show these things, then you start to speak into a person's value. Because if you value somebody, you will do these things for them. The minute they are not important to you and you don't care how they feel, you are telling them they don't have any value to you. And as a man, that is not good for you to tell your woman. You are telling her, you're only good for sex. Shut up and take it. And that is what you do to a prostitute. You don't want that person to be complaining about the bills. You don't want that person to complain where you left your socks when you took it off. Because you're paying that person to have sex with you. Now, although that is not a good thing to be doing, it is definitely not a good thing to expect your wife to behave as a prostitute where she should not complain of you leaving your stuff all over the place. And even that prostitute can tolerate you because they'll only see you a certain time and they don't have to live with you. That's why they're so happy. Well, I don't know if they're happy, but that's why they're not so upset with you. Because they don't have to live with you. And understanding that being a father is a condition. These are things that a man has to walk around equipping himself with. A father is a role, not a biological condition.
Love that.
And it's a role. So your first role as a father is to your wife. And the same thing now that you do for your wife, excluding the sexual part, is the same thing you need to do for your kids. You will give them an identity. They will carry your name. You will protect and you will provide for them. You see?
Yeah.
So I'll stop there because I believe that hopefully we covered mostly everything that we should have.
Yeah, I think so. I just want to reemphasize that final thing you said there, that as the men, we are actually chiseling it out and creating the culture of our home and for our family. Not only a culture but a legacy, and something great. And that could either be something damaging or something constructive. So but until next time, I think we had quite a feast today, unpacking and chewing through the PPI, the third chapter. Remember, I want to remind our viewers, the book is available on Amazon, and there's an audiobook version on YouTube. It's a great book, great read to enrich you in your marriage and to help you equip other people as they come along your way in life. All right. Until next time, I am Shane, and on the other side,
I'm Sylburn.
all
Take
right,
care.
guys.